Sooner Nation, welcome to the SI Sooners podcast. My gosh, where y'all want to start today? I mean, the biggest news of the past week, Lon Kruger retired last Friday. We found out about it on Thursday, right after we recorded episode 52 of this here SI Sooners podcast. So we can start there. OU then proceeded to lose their two best players. Davion Harmon declared for the NBA draft. Then yesterday, Austin Reeves declared. So we can start there. OU needs a new basketball coach. OU definitely needs some new players. We're going to get into that. But Ryan, what do you say we start with some football?
Yeah, that sounds good to me, John. I feel bad for you making this rundown. We just have nothing to talk about today. I don't know how you did it, John.
It was not easy to fit everything that's gone on in the last 7 days into a 30-minute podcast, but we're going to try. That's Ryan Chapman. He's in Norman. I'm John Hoover, always in Tulsa. I want to thank you guys again for listening to the SI Sooners podcast. I appreciate y'all watching on my YouTube channel. That's John Hoover Media. SI Sooners is a Fan Nation affiliate, part of the Sports Illustrated Network. SI Sooners is our website, allsooners.com. Now, we have had a super busy front half of this week, and we just got word tonight that it's going to continue to stay busy. Tomorrow, we got Lincoln Riley coming on the Zoom call with us. We're going to finally get to talk to John Finley. Fired up. I'm hoping that I'll be there. I got a COVID shot scheduled in the morning, and they better get that needle in and out quick because I don't want to miss the Lincoln Riley call. So earlier this week, we got to Jamar Cain. We got to talk to Bill Bedenbaugh and Jamar Cain. We got some defensive guys. We got some offensive guys. Ryan, before we dive into the state of Oklahoma basketball, give me your takeaways from our time this week with Jamar Cain and Bill Bedenbaugh on the Zoom calls this week.
Yeah, we'll start chronologically. We talked to Jamar Cain earlier this week, and John, honestly, this is the first time I've gotten to speak with Jamar Cain, got to share the Zoom call with his presence, and my first impression was, I immediately see why the recruiting has had an uptick on the defensive side of the football. Yes, Alex Grinch's defense, they're doing a great job there, but when you bring in guys like Jamar Cain, it's just easy to see why the Sooners are starting to try to chip away at getting those elite defensive talent on campus immediately. But diving into the guys on campus, I really got the feeling, John, that they're really confident in the depth that they've bred there, especially at that outside linebacker, rush linebacker, whatever you want to call it, that spot right there. You'd think on paper, conventionally, you're losing Ronnie Perkins, the guy that's going to go high in the NFL draft. Oh no, the sky is falling, but no. You got Nick Bonito and Isaiah Thomas, who were both just, worthy of all conference honorees last year. And then just kind of start to sift through some of the guys. It sounded like, Coach Cain was pleased with how Marcus Stripling's come along, even some of the young guys, Clayton Smith, guys like that. Like it just feels like Alex Grinch's vision of having 22 guys they can throw out there and platoon. That way you can give 100% on 45 snaps instead of being worn out for 80 or 90 snaps. It feels like the Sooners are getting close to that, and I think that's a scary prospect because this defense could take another little step forward there, become one of the country's elite. We just haven't seen an offense the power of Lincoln Riley's with a defense like that.
Yeah, let's hear from Jamar Cain right here. Got a great clip from him. He's got 3 brand new freshmen who are coming in, going through spring practice right now, and I wanted to know, hey man, let's talk about each guy because we didn't get to talk to him on signing day about those 3 guys. Want to talk about each guy, Ethan Downs, Clayton Smith, and Nathan Rollins-Kabonge. So Ryan Aber from the Oklahoman asked him about NRK, and then I followed up with a question on the other 2 guys. Check this out.
The interesting thing about Nate is Grinch and I were on the same page when I first got here about we wanted basketball players. We want long, athletic basketball players. And Nate checks several boxes for us, being a very long kid and very athletic. And when I first saw Nate, I remember I was at his high school and to see this kid walk down the hall, it's like, oh my word, who is this? And I knew his high school coach, Houston Lillard, for a long time. It's Damian Lillard's older brother. So I've been knowing that family for a while. And they just said, hey, this kid's got an opportunity to be a really good really good football player. And he just kept getting bigger and bigger the closer he got to me, and I was smitten by it. I just fell in love right away. And then just to see that, he was a blank slate, and a lot of these kids come in with different techniques and everything they learned from high school, and we got to break it all down and try to teach them our new techniques. But Nate was such a blank slate, even in the weight room with Benny and those guys. He's just so raw and so young, and I'm confident in my coaching ability to be able to get him over that hump. And I just told him here a little bit ago, it's going to take a while. It's going to take a year or two because this growth, it's new. So with it being new, you got to just trust the process, trust that you're going to get hit hard, trust that your pad level is going to be bad, trust your eyes are going to be bad. But once it clicks, it's going to click, and we're very excited about Nate. I remember when I first got here, I sat down with Coach Grinch, and we just watched all the kids that we had offered, and we went through the whole list, and he wanted to see if I had liked them or didn't like them, and I liked both of those kids a lot. And Ethan, with him being a local kid, I say local because he's in state, but Ethan grew up a Sooner, and and that relationship was, I won't say it was easy, but it was easy because he was, no matter what, Ethan was coming here. He grew up a Sooner, and just the other day in practice, he said, "Coach, I'm having so much fun. Like this is a dream for me." I'm like, all right, well, let's make some plays. But that relationship just grew over time, and that one was a little bit easier because no matter what, Ethan eats, sleeps Sooner football. So Ethan was going to be a Sooner no matter what, if I was in this chair or not. I think Clayton was a little bit different because he was the number one outside backer in the state of Texas last year, and with Texas and A&M and all those other schools and the SEC schools coming after him, we really had to foster that relationship. And I've recruited that area before. Coach Grinch had recruited that area before, Texarkana. So Coach Grinch kind of already had the relationship with him. And I just had to build trust with him. Like, hey, listen, dude, you're going to come here. And the success with Nick Benito actually helped that out more than people realize, because a lot of people see Nick's success and like, oh, okay, I can come in there and be the next Nick. I could be because a lot of schools sell that guy who's on to the next level or has success, and they sell that guy. So now we have a guy like a Nick Benito just to sell that to Clayton. And Clayton is a long, athletic kid that I don't want to say he's going to surprise people, but once he learns how to play within our defense, it's going to be fun. But his relationship was a little bit different, and I think once he came out here and saw it, he just fell in love with it. He came out here the year before I got here to one of our champion barbecues, and he saw it and he fell in love with it.
And then on Wednesday, we got some guys from the offensive side of the ball, starting with offensive line coach Bill Bedenbaugh and offensive lineman Tyrese Robinson and offensive lineman Chris Murray. So, yeah, it was a little offensive line centric, which is cool because those guys are usually really smart, great to talk to. We also had about 10 minutes with Kennedy Brooks, a little bit coming up on that later on. But I wanted to play this clip from Bill Bedenbaugh on Wanye Morris, the Tennessee transfer who's probably going to start at left tackle for the Sooners. I thought this was a very interesting answer. Listen to what Bill Bedenbaugh said.
Yeah, I think it's huge. I think that's the one thing in recruiting that people don't understand. If you go back and look at it and you play the percentages, most guys, now I know this isn't 100%, but most guys stay close to home. I really think Wanye wanted to come here out of high school. I really truly believe that, and he said that, and his mom has, but it was close to home. He chose a place that was close to home. But I think it's going to be huge for us. I recruited him out of high school. He's a guy that I got to go see work out in high school a bunch, practice, work out in the weight room, trust his coaches. He comes from a great program in Georgia, watched all of his games from Tennessee. Obviously, he's a really good player. The one thing I really like is, he asks a lot of questions. You know what I mean? As good as he's played in the past, started, I think, 19 games, started as a true freshman at the place that he came from, has had some success, but he's not resting on what he's done. Everything, how he works, how he approaches it, asks questions, comes up here and meets with me on his own. So I've been impressed with him so far. I think we're going to have some pretty good competition at tackle. I think we're going to have it inside. Obviously, it's got to continue. But, having a quality guy like that that's played at a high level, against some pretty good competition always helps out.
Ryan, you wrote about Kennedy Brooks' comeback. I asked him how tough it was sitting out last season, watching the games and knowing, Ramondre Stevenson would be out half the season. McGowan was a true freshman. Pledger was trying to have a breakout season. And he said, and then let's not forget, Trey Sermon had left and gone to Ohio State, and he was having an amazing season. But, Kennedy Brooks comes out and says that he was pulling for those guys. He's watching at home on his couch. But he said, yeah, it was really tough. What did you take away, Ryan, from our session with Kennedy Brooks.
Yeah, I think that the main takeaway is that this is a dude that's just ready to get back out there and play more football. I know that when he opted out way back when, at the beginning of all this grand adventure that we've been on as a world, my first thought, just from the outside looking in, was, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Kennedy Brooks, running back, 2-time 1,000-yard rusher. He's going to opt out. He's going to get his body ready. He's going to enter the NFL draft. Going to be a smart move for him, less mileage. And then he says he's coming back. And to me, I'm like, okay, I don't know if that makes a ton of sense. Talking to him, it's very apparent, John, Kennedy Brooks just loves being an Oklahoma Sooner. Like, this is not just, pandering to the fans or whatever. He's a guy that loves to play football, loves to play for Oklahoma, and you kind of heard that. John, I was curious, like, he's stepping into almost a completely new running back room than the last time he was in there. He's got a new coach. You talk about Eric Gray, the Tennessee transfer, McGowan, Mikey Henderson moving in there. Hicks might be the only guy in there that he had his phone before this, and you could just tell he wasn't worried about that. He was just talking about how awesome all those guys were last year and how he can't wait to get back out on the field. So that's what struck me, is that Oklahoma's getting a guy that's hyper motivated to be out on the football field again, making plays. And I just hope that joy kind of like spills over into the game, because we don't want a bunch of robots. They're having fun. They're out there playing a game that we all want to be playing. Like, I think it'll be a fun watch out of Kennedy Brooks this year.
Bro, I still dream that I'm playing high school football somewhere. Like, I'll be up in the stands covering the game, and like the coach is going, Hoover, get down here. We need you to play wide receiver. I still have that dream, and it's been a few years since I played high school football. So I also have that dream that I'm covering a sporting event from like the press box, and I get mad at my computer and I fling it out the window of the press box. I do.
I think that's a reality, John. I don't think that's a dream.
Oh, yeah. No, that's all right. That actually happened. Hey, we're going to hear more from Kennedy Brooks himself, as well as a couple of other players in the final segment. Up next on the SI Sooners podcast, we're going to try and figure out who wants to coach this basketball team. Hey, listen up. Spring is here, but you know the seasons in Oklahoma. Hot one day, cold the next. That's a lot of work for your heating and air unit, but the guys at Trade Pros got you covered. Sign up for one of their no-hassle service plans. They'll come out twice a year and tune up your AC and your furnace, and you get priority scheduling and discounts. Just call Chris at Trade Pros, 405-316-0598. That's 405-316-0598. Or go to TradeProsOKC.com. Hey, are you a business owner looking to get your product out there to the masses? Let's say you run a hotel in Norman, or a car dealership in Oklahoma City, or a restaurant in Edmond, or maybe you're a small online business who creates and sells OU merchandise, and you just want Sooner Nation to come sample your wares. Well, then consider advertising in this space right here on the SI Sooners podcast. SI Sooners reaches thousands of readers, viewers, and listeners literally every day, and the SI Sooners podcast is the ideal place to find your next customer. To advertise, send an email to allsoonersi@gmail.com or DM us on Twitter at all_Sooners. Follow SI Sooners on Twitter at all_Sooners. Find Ryan at Radios Ryan, and I am always at John E. Hoover. Our website, allsooners.com. We are a Fan Nation affiliate, part of the Sports Illustrated Network. You can find the video version of this podcast. It's always a lot of fun. Over on my YouTube channel, that's John Hoover Media. And remember, if you're on that original channel, the big one, the one with 50-something hundred subscribers, I need you to go back and subscribe to the little one, the little channel, the new channel, because we got to get those numbers up over 1,000. When we do that, that's when we can start really switching everything over to that new channel. So once that happens, that's when we got to do it. Okay, that's where all my new content is going to be posted. You guys are going to be there. Me and Ryan are going to be there. Ryan, I got to say, man, shout out again to Caleb and Carrie at Trade Pros for coming through. It has been a pleasure to be partnered with those guys along this crazy podcast ride this whole way. So looking forward to a long relationship with those dudes. And they do great work at Trade Pros. You need to check them out, Trade Pros OKC. Ryan, man, I don't know how else to say this. I got a real special career moment today. Kind of a highlight. I've been doing this for a long, long time, and I got to achieve one of my career highlights. For sure. It was cool. I'll tell you a little backstory here. So I've been a member of the Football Writers Association of America since 1997, my very first year on a college football beat. And over the years, I've gotten to do a little more and a little more and a little more for the FWAA. Well, this year, I was invited to sit on the board of voters who select the FWAA All-American team. Very cool honor. Basically, what we did was we had a couple of conference calls, Zoom calls in this case, with other members from around the country. There's about a dozen of us. And after, the membership, which is about 1,300 members in all nationwide, after they all vote on the 2020 All-America teams, the board, which is what I was on, we get together and basically confirm the vote. Kind of like the Electoral College. The voters do the voting, but then the board goes in and, certifies it and checks it and looks at it and everybody approves it. And, there aren't really any changes per se that you would make as a board member, but, someone who has maybe been overlooked that the board feels strongly about, then maybe we'll discuss it in committee and we'll add names and we'll go back and forth. We'll debate it. Maybe somebody makes second team, maybe somebody makes co-first team quarterback, something like that. It's happened. So it's all discussion, and I think they went about 2 hours each this year, and it was a lot of fun. As you can imagine, a 2-hour Zoom call is a lot of fun. Well, in that voting process last fall, it was determined that Zaven Collins, the big linebacker from the University of Tulsa, right up the street from me here at TU in Tulsa, he was the top vote getter for the All-America defensive team. So then we took kind of another vote. He ended up winning the FWAA's Bronco Nagurski Trophy. Who can you say Bronco Nagurski without going Bronco Nagurski? What a great name. Anyway, he also won the Chuck Bednarik Award and the Vince Lombardi Award, which go to the top defensive player in the country. But the FWAA, in conjunction with the Charlotte Touchdown Club, presents the Nagurski Trophy every year. So, pandemic, right? Nobody's really traveling very much. Everybody's kind of cutting costs. So I get an email on Tuesday from the FWAA this week. Hey, can you be at TU on Thursday to present Zaven Collins, make a presentation for his Nagurski Trophy? I'm like, this Thursday? And then, of course, I'm like, well, heck yeah, of course. What a great honor. So today, dude, I got to put on a suit and tie. And they actually made me wear shoes. I mean, come on. I rolled on down to TU, made a little speech, and I handed a trophy to the best defensive player in all of college football, man. It was pretty cool. I mean, first of all, hang on. The trophy weighs about 45 pounds. So clearly, I need to get back in the gym. Second, I have interviewed Zaven before, but I guess I'd just kind of forgotten how big he is. He is all of 6'5". He played last year at about 255 or 260. He looked about 245 to me today. Looks like he slimmed down some. But he's just such a cool kid, such a nice guy. Hominy, Oklahoma. Yeah. And then tomorrow's his pro day. And he told me that there are 32 teams in Tulsa tomorrow to watch him. 32. That's every one. Every team in the NFL is here to watch him. And most of those 32 are sending the maximum of 3 people to watch his workout. So, you know what? I'm guessing he's going to be a first-round draft pick. Ryan, speaking of the NFL draft, our Thursdays with Mora series concluded this week. If you guys haven't seen it, allsooners.com, you really need to check that out. We've got interviews, basically 2-on-1, not quite 1-on-1, 2-on-1, me and Ryan with Jim Mora Jr. on Creed Humphrey, Ronnie Perkins, Ramondre Stevenson, Adrian Ely, and then today we broke out a 2-part, or kind of a twofer, I guess, Trey Brown and Trey Norwood, the 2 Treys, Dos Treys. I thought it was really, really good stuff with Jim Mora, Ryan.
Yeah, absolutely, and he was very gracious with his time, not just for the 2 Treys story, but for the entire series. A lot of insight on exactly what all the scouts, all the coaches are looking for, what areas these Oklahoma players have wowed them in, and he honed in on kind of the roles he expects all of those guys to perform at the next level. So I found it to be really insightful, really informative. And anytime you get to chop it up with, a former 2-time NFL coach, former UCLA head coach, a guy, he's very familiar with this exact process. That's what he made his money on in the NFL, is nailing this portion of the process as part of, the head coach, front office, all that works together. So it was really great insight. I'm really glad we got to do that. And I would encourage everyone to go check that out at allsooners.com, because we have that Thursdays with Mora series, but John, we had a little more too.
Yeah, we did. We've got we every other week we have a publishers meeting with SI and Maven, and Jim sits in and call it the Mora Minute, and it's usually about 5 minutes of him kind of explaining how the draft works and what's going on in meeting rooms and what's going on behind the closed doors at the combine and what's going on in the war room. It has been fascinating to listen to a head coach basically open the doors and say, here's what's happening, guys. It's been really fascinating. You hear these stories, but to have a former head coach come in and say, here's what's actually happening is really cool. And then last week, Ryan interviewed Coach Mora, not 2-on-1, but 1-on-1. Ryan, tell us about your conversation with the former NFL and college football head coach.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the first time we got to touch base with him since Oklahoma's pro day, and obviously the big winner there was Creed Humphrey. So head on to allsooners.com. Jim Mora had a lot to say about what Creed Humphrey did for himself, how high he could go, some different fits, some different teams that might have had their eyes open to Creed Humphrey, and if he has the potential to be not just that first center off the board, but into the first round. And then in the coming days, we've got some stuff. I wanted to pick Jim Mora's brain on Alex Grinch and the Oklahoma defense, because I remember some very vocal national pundits. Jim Mora was one of those at one point in a prior regime on that side of the football that was fairly critical of how the Sooners played. So Jim Mora gave his thoughts on Alex Grinch and what that defense might do if Alex Grinch moves on to a head coaching job. And then I had to ask the head ball coach about Lincoln Riley, what he does to prepare his receivers to be NFL ready, and then how Lincoln Riley stays on the cutting edge of college football. We know him as the offensive whiz kid, that guy, but in the copycat league, everyone's always stealing stuff. How do you stay out in front of all that? So all those stories, John, they'll be rolling out over the next week here on allsooners.com. Again, incredible insight from a guy that's been in those meeting rooms, been game planning, has been just live, breathe, sleep football his entire life, basically.
So now we are down to interview Coach Mora again next week. And, while his appearances across the SI network and literally almost every site has utilized this time with Jim Mora. So if you want to click around on the SI network, go ahead and do that, because he's weighed in for every site, every team, and every NFL team, every team that's got draft picks, every team that's producing draft-worthy players. He's out there doing it. But that's an NFL draft thing. You know us. Me and Ryan, we're going to take the conversation in an entirely different direction next week. Can't wait for that. Ryan, we did not get a chance to really, I guess, pontificate on Lon Kruger. We could have done, like last Friday, an emergency pod, but when breaking news like that happens, it's like we're so busy bringing you guys all that great content, allsooners.com. Ryan, I want you to go first. What did Lon Kruger mean to Oklahoma, and what did he mean to you?
Yeah, so I think for me, starting on what he meant to me, he brought the excitement back to Oklahoma basketball, John. I grew up, look, I've lived in Norman all my life. This is not something that I'm shy about. As I've become a professional, I've had to put those experiences aside, but I remember growing up going to watch Kelvin Sampson's basketball team, having a ton of fun. I think my favorite memory is, I think it might have been 2002. I'll have to go back and check, but OU and Texas Tech, a really highly contested overtime game in the Lloyd Noble Center. And that was about as good as it got for OU basketball for me. Going into the Capel era, Blake Griffin was awesome. He was fun, but you never felt that team had a chance to win a national championship. And then obviously all the recruiting stuff, the wheels fell off the wagon. Lon Kruger came back in, and he brought that excitement back. That 2016 Final Four run, Buddy Hield, Isaiah Cousins, Jordan Woodard, Ryan Spangler, the whole, you thought that team could legitimately win a national championship, and everyone had a ton of fun watching that team along the way. So for me, he brought the fun back to Oklahoma basketball, and I think from the organizational point of view, from what Joe Castiglione and the athletic department are looking at, Lon Kruger also brought that stability, John. We kind of referenced how Capel left the program, things like that. You just had a decade of knowing that you had one of the stand-up guys on the sideline in Norman. He was always going to do the right thing, not just for the team, but for each individual guy. And you knew that he was going to run a not necessarily a buttoned up, but just a legit, upstanding program, and he was going to do it the right way. So not only did he bring that excitement back, but he brought that stability. and respect back to the program.
Yeah, what was that, 2009, the Blake Griffin year? You're right. They were close, but they were missing a couple of pieces, I think, for a national championship run. What Lon Kruger meant to me. In this profession, it's not easy to get a head coach on the phone. It's just not. It's like they got to go through filters and filters and filters of PR people, staff, communications consultants, and whatnot. Lon Kruger wasn't that way. We always worked with the OU staff for public relations and whatnot, but when I was with the franchise, we were doing radio. I would text Lon, and I would say, "Are you able to do radio Monday?" And he would text back and say, "Absolutely. What time do you need me?" And then I would start setting it up with his PR guys. The day he retired, you're hearing all these rumors and reports, and finally I just picked up the phone and I called him, and he answered on like the first ring. I said, "What's going on, Coach?" And he said, "Can't talk right now. I'll have more to say later. We had a story ready to go." I'll say it that way. Now, that's hard to come across in our business, where there are a million different organizations out there picking at you, pulling at you, wanting your time, wanting a quote, wanting this, wanting that. That's not easy to do. And for Lon to have that kind of, relationship with the media and just be able to say, yeah, sure, John Hoover doesn't come to all our games, but I'll talk to him on the radio. Sure, he doesn't, but I'll pick it up on the first ring. What a great guy. He's just a great person. And beyond being a basketball coach, people don't do that anymore. You got to go through DMs, and you got to go through, try covering recruiting sometime, when you got to go text a coach, and then you got, it's just such a breath of fresh air when you are able to reach out to a big time, how many wins has he got? 500, and I don't even know. I've lost count. A coach with that stature, and you can reach out to him anytime you want, get him on the phone like that. It just says something about what kind of character that guy has. So now, what does he mean to the program? I say Lon was the perfect hire at the perfect time. Fact of the matter is, whoever Joe C. hires next, he's going to have a hard time outdoing himself, because Lon was not only a rebuilder of programs, he always, as Ryan said, did it the right way. You knew you could count on him to stick to the rules, have a high degree of character in everything that he did. My favorite quote in that whole press conference last Friday, when he said his dad taught him at an early age, there's no satisfaction to be gained from cheating. None. Because anybody can do that. Man, that was awesome. What a great quote. And then, the next game we watch in the NCAA tournament is Syracuse versus Houston. Boeheim versus Sampson. Ryan, speaking of Kelvin Sampson, I know there's some sentimentality out there for bringing him back. I don't think that's happening, folks. I don't think. Now, Joe C. has surprised us all before, right? And I saw where Kelvin mentioned Joe by name in his post-game press conference after they beat Syracuse, after they won the regional, heading off to the Final Four. He said, Joe Castiglione, one of my best friends. So maybe we'll see. We'll have to wait and see how that shakes out. But my thought on that whole deal is Kelvin would rather see Kellen get the job. His son, Kellen Sampson. What a cool moment that was between those two when he and Kelvin were sharing that hug after Houston beat Syracuse. But what do you guys think about this? I'll throw this out there, see what you guys think. Kellen Sampson is your new head coach. Quannas White and Hollis Price come in. They come back home, and they are Kellen's ace recruiters. I mean, just look at the job that those two guys have done in recruiting at Houston, and you know that they'd keep that pipeline open, right? And then you would think with three young guys who've never been at the helm before, right? You're going to need an older, more experienced guy. Well, why not offer the job and a big fat paycheck to Jim Molinari to stick around? He knows OU. He knows the Big 12. He's unbelievable at scouting. He's been a head coach for a long time. He's sharp as heck on the bench during the games. Ryan, you and I talked about it. He's kind of a Yoda figure for Kellen as he learns the ropes as a head coach. Is that not the ideal scenario? You bring all those former Sooners back and attack them with young guys and supplement them with an old guy?
Yeah, it's certainly attractive. I think the only downside to that, if I'm nitpicking, would be maybe is the Oklahoma program at a spot in stature that you're not really looking to take a shot on an assistant who hasn't proved that they can do it by themselves. I know that you have the Yoda figure, things like that, but it's Oklahoma basketball, John. It's 5 Final Fours. It's I still think I don't know what this tournament did. I still think it's the most tournament wins without a national championship. Like it's a very good basketball heritage. I wonder if they feel that maybe they are a step above hiring an assistant, but the counterpoint to that is look what Oklahoma State did this year with Mike Boynton. He was obviously the right guy for the right time and looks to have that program in the right direction. So I think that would be a good move, John. It's just so interesting. All the names that we have seen flying around this thing, it's been wild to try and track.
Lon Kruger, 674 wins. I was way behind. I was like 5 years behind, man. And he coached at OU for 10 years. You're right. To bring him in from UNLV and to remember the story now, the one that I wrote, Joe C. asked him 3 times, Lon, will you please come coach Oklahoma? Nah, I don't feel like it. Lon, will you please come coach Oklahoma? Nah, we appreciate it, but we like it here at UNLV. Lon, bro, you got to come coach Oklahoma. Okay, it sounds good. 3 times. So you're right. Oklahoma basketball is at a place right now where, a big name probably should serve them, but that's going to be interesting. Let's get into some of that. As you texted me today, Ryan, college basketball is on crack right now. Shaka takes the Marquette job, so Texas is open. Chris Beard waits until today, April 1st, so his buyout at Tech drops from $5 million to $4 million. Then he takes the Texas job today. Earlier in the day, Roy Williams retires, which to me, bro, this throws a wrench into everything. Everything. I think we thought we had a pretty good list of who the top candidates at OU might be, but now with North Carolina open, I feel like everything's off the table. You got Grant McCaslin at North Texas, who just signed a big extension to stay in Denton, but does it really mean anything when you sign those contracts anymore? He could be headed to Lubbock, could be headed to Norman. The Mark Turgeon factor, I mean, maybe, I guess. I wouldn't, but I'm not Joe C. And then you and I were discussing this, John Beilein? John Beilein? Man, I don't see it. Joe C's smarter than that. You don't hire someone who's that old to bring all their baggage along with them. Not when the guy who replaced Jeff Capel and all his baggage was Lon Kruger, who had no baggage at all. And, you've been running with Lon's philosophies for the last 10 years. You're going to do that? I don't see it. Dana Altman sure seems like he's got it set up and rolling at Oregon. Plus, if you think about it, he's got some controversy, some skeletons in his closet. Paul Mills at Oral Roberts, great guy, great coach. Got hot at the right time this year for sure, but he still hasn't finished higher than 4th place in the Summit League. I think the best candidate, my favorite, would be Porter Moser from Loyola Chicago. If Sister Jean would ever just let him go, I'm kidding. But no, he's really good. If I were Joe, I'd probably write him the big check if McCaslin takes the Tech job, which we expect. Porter Moser's a little bit twitchy for my liking. He gets a little excited on the sideline, which is obviously a big switch from Lon. But Ryan, that guy can flat out coach.
Yeah, and it would be in line with, John, watching Loyola Chicago hasn't just been fun over the past 2 deep tournament runs that they've had. I know they had a little break in between them, but it's not just fun because they're a lower seed. They're a lower seed that plays an awesome style of basketball. It's that high-octane defense, working around on offense, trying to find that right shot. It's just exciting stuff. It's been a ton of fun to watch, and it'd be something that I'd be interested to see if he could replicate in Norman, because I know there was a stat thrown out earlier. I think I saw it on Twitter that without his big, he has a pretty subpar record at Loyola Chicago, but my pushback on that would be it's Loyola Chicago. In the 2 or 3 years until you can recruit your guys, of course it's not going to look great. It's really hard to get talent into Loyola Chicago. So that criticism, I guess, doesn't really make a ton of sense to me, because you shouldn't have that problem taking that brand of basketball and putting any big name on it, whether it be Oklahoma, North Carolina, anything like that. So I think Porter would be the guy, obviously. You kind of have to wonder, though. He's always hung around that Illinois, Indiana area. If he didn't take the Indiana job already, is he going to leave Loyola Chicago? That would be my only thing, but I would love to see him in Norman. I think he'd be a ton of fun, and his teams would be a ton of fun.
Up next on the SI Sooners podcast, we hear from David Ugwoegbu, Kennedy Brooks, and Perrion Winfrey. Hey, you guys want 20% off Manscaped? Then stick around. Support for the SI Sooners podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, the best men's below-the-waist grooming product on the market. Coming up, I'm going to tell you about a special 20% discount code exclusive to listeners of the SI Sooners podcast. Ryan, as we've been told before, been a loyal customer of Manscaped for a while now, but I've only recently been introduced to the product. And you guys, I'm telling you, y'all know me by now. I like being comfortable. I like having things that feel normal, comfortable, smooth. And I'm telling you, when I started doing this, I was skeptical. I was like, come on, do I really need another new trimmer? Do I really need men's products? Turns out, I did. I really did. And you probably do too, because I'm telling you guys, I'm 100% sold. Ryan, the Manscaped line of products, from the trimmer to the boxer briefs to the crop preserver, everything's just more comfortable.
Yeah, and you talk about those boxer briefs, John. We've said it before. It is by far my favorite pair of boxers. Every day that I do every laundry day I have, John, I'm excited because that means my Manscaped boxer briefs are back at the top of the pile. Get to toss those back on. But I too was skeptical. I've been a Manscaped user for about 6-7 months, even before they came on board here, John. And what we found out is with the Lawnmower 3.0 specifically, their premium below the belt grooming tool, it's got everything you need, John. It's cordless. It does fast, clean work. It's safe. It's got that skin safe technology, so you don't have to worry about nicking anything precious, anything like that. It's even got that LED light on it, John. That way you know exactly what you're doing around everything that you need to keep nice, safe, and protected. So it's the most comfortable. You're going to be comfortable. You're going to look great. And guys out there with women in your life, lucky enough, they're going to love it too.
The Perfect Package 3.0 includes the Lawnmower 3.0. That high-tech ceramic blade is serious. It's good at what it does. And that skin-safe technology, guys, it's the best there is. It's the best that you can. It's the best you can buy. It's the best on the market. Trust me on that when I say it. And if you've got facial hair, I've told you this before, don't use it down there. Because why? Because that's just gross. Manscaped makes a great gift. We know birthdays. We know Father's Day is coming up in June. Christmas is down the line, but why would you wait that long? We've got a special promo code for SI Sooners listeners right now that'll get you 20% off your whole order, plus free shipping. What beats that? Nothing, I'm telling you, nothing. All you got to do is use the promo code SOON, SOON. That's right, promo code SOON. Do it soon, because the sooner you get Manscaped, the sooner you're going to be comfortable. Final segment of the SI Sooners podcast. Ryan, before we finish with some football, should we recap the basketball roster movement? It has been hard to keep up with the comings and goings in Norman, mostly the goings. We mentioned Davion Harmon and Austin Reeves to the NBA, but man, Kirk Queth told us last month he's going pro. Anyang Garang, Trey Phipps, and then today, Victor Iwuakor. And there's probably going to be more. Ryan, break it down for us.
Yeah, and so on top of all those names too, John, you've also got Alondas Williams and Brady Manick. They have not made a public decision. They're in the same situation as Austin Reeves and Kirk Queth. The NCAA obviously granting that extra year of eligibility for all the athletes that played this year. They can opt to come back for their super senior seasons. They can move on to the NBA. They could transfer. Who knows? So a ton of turnover. And look, I think that this was accelerated, obviously, by Lon Kruger's retirement, because anytime a new coach comes in, new regime, all that stuff, it's the typical roster turnover that's just been blown out of proportion by the transfer portal. So this is something that, yes, I think it's alarming, but it's not like the sky's falling thing, because a head coach gets hired and just as easily, like any of those names we discussed, they're going to have some guys that are immediately going to say, I want to be a part of that in Norman. So you're going to get some guys coming in. And don't forget, John, even if Alondas Williams and Brady Manick decide to go to the NBA draft, all four of those guys that have put their name forward, if they don't hire an agent, which let's take Austin Reeves, set him aside. He said he intends to hire an agent, but Davion Harmon, Brady Manick, Alondis Williams. Two of those we haven't heard from, but Davion Harmon specifically, if he doesn't hire an agent, he can go all the way through this draft process, and if he doesn't get selected, John, he can come back to campus in the fall. He could rejoin the team, and he's not ruled ineligible. It's one of the new changes the NCAA made, I believe, in 2018, so this roster might not be set even through the end of the NBA draft. So it'll be interesting to track and see. But of course, whenever the new coach comes in, they're going to have some work to do in the portal. But look, that's just college sports now. The portal giveth and the portal taketh.
We call that content in the business, Ryan. It's going to keep the website populated. Let's get back to a little bit of football. Ryan, you got on the Zoom Monday, and you asked our man David Ugwoegbu, who we both like as a football player. I told you I think he looks like a Pro Bowler to me. He's the OU linebacker, and Ryan asked him about the OU linebacker room. And Ryan, danged if he didn't give you exactly the quote you wanted, which is, we're going to wake up the college football world. Take a listen.
So last year you saw your defensive line. They made that huge jump forward, kind of got some national headlines, put themselves in the conversation to be one of the elite units in college football. Does that give you guys as a linebacker group any, confidence or extra motivation to say we want that to be us this year?
Oh, yeah, it gives us all the confidence because we've already known that about our D linemen, and it just took the rest of the world and the rest of the college football world to catch up and finally realize it. And that's exactly how we feel about this linebacker group. Like, we have real vets in there. We got Asamoah, we got D. White, like you said, Caleb Kelly. We got a whole bunch of guys that go under the radar but are real dogs, and everybody in that room can play. So we already feel as if that's us. We just got to wake up the rest of the college football world.
Now, Ryan, that's the one position that has not been talked about much this offseason, and that was your kind of going into that Zoom, that was your kind of directive, was like, nobody's asking about the linebackers. I want to know more about the linebackers, probably because everyone's back, and they were also good last year. I get that. There's no real intrigue, not much anyway. There might be some jobs that are on the line a little bit. Backups become starters, starters become backups. We'll see. But Ryan, you were right. That group of linebackers ranges from good to spectacular.
Yeah, and this was my thing last year with them, is I don't know if this should be labeled as a criticism or not, John, because they played well. They did. But I just felt like when you talk about David Ugwoegbu, we both love David Ugwoegbu's athletic profile. Brian Asamoah, I'm a big fan of him as well. And to me, it was like they played well, but with the skill set they've got, you expect these guys to go out there and kind of put themselves into that conversation like Kenneth Murray did. I thought they were going to take that step forward, keep growing, and be like, yeah, we're going to stay another year and we're going to be first-round linebackers because look at what we can do. We are just Adonises on the football field. And they just didn't necessarily do that at the elite end. I kind of think this linebacker room, John, if they can take that next step going from good to elite, that's that last key to unlocking what the potential of this defense could be. If you've got a front seven truly just playing with their hair on fire, terrorizing offenses, who knows what the secondary could become. And they've got the personnel to do that because we talk about Ugwoegbu, we talk about Asamoah. I haven't even mentioned Deshaun White, who was the starter for most of the year. And oh, by the way, Caleb Kelly, that guy, he's still around, rehabbing from another injury. He's back, added to that room again. So this could be a huge year for the linebacker core. The defensive line made all the noise last year. Why not the linebackers? David Ugwoegbu sure thinks so.
No doubt. Listen, it's a lot easier to be good at linebacker when the guys in front of you are kicking people's teeth in. So let's hear from Perrion Winfrey. He's a guy that we got to talk to last year. Not a whole lot. But listen to the way he describes his urgency going from junior college to OU last year and now his senior year in Division I.
My mindset has changed dramatically. I see that it's so close, I don't want to mess up. So everything that I do, I come hard at. I go as hard as I can possibly because I know that it could get taken away from me one day and I won't have this opportunity again. So I say that my mindset really changed because I'm trying to feed my family. I understand that if I don't do the things that I need to do, somebody else is going to take my spot, and I can't allow that to happen.
Listen, sounds like he's serious about his craft, Ryan, and pretty, I would say, intensely focused.
Yeah, for sure. And this is a guy, John, that he came in. He made that adjustment from junior college to D1, big-time college football, and we're all like, wow, this is impressive. No real actual spring, summer, any of that. It's going to be fascinating to see what Perrion Winfrey we get now that has the ability to get coached up all winter, all spring, all the way into fall ball, because the production wasn't always there when you look at the box score. We know the effect he had because we saw it. If he can get those two things to line up, though, there's no telling what this Oklahoma defense could do with an even larger presence there wreaking havoc at the heart of offenses.
Last one, Kennedy Brooks. I know there's a lot of competition for carries this year, but I predict a big year for Kennedy Brooks. One, his body didn't take a whole lot of hits last year. Yeah, exactly 0. And 2, he sounds really, really, really hungry after sitting out 2020. Listen to this.
It made me appreciate the game more, just being out and being away. It definitely made me appreciate all the work that goes into it, all the time spent, practice, meetings, and just building that chemistry with the teammates. For me, it's been going really well. I mean, I've been playing with a lot of these guys for a year. Just because I missed one doesn't mean anything, but it's still going well. I'm still getting in flow of things, and I'm getting better every day.
Ryan, this is a big spring for OU running backs. First one for DeMarco Murray as a running backs coach. First one for Seth McGowan. Eric Gray is new out of Tennessee, and he's got to learn the offense. And then Kennedy Brooks last year sat out all of the season. He's got to knock some rust off.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, too, because we know when Lincoln Riley and Jay Boulware were the two making the calls of the rotations, things like that, they absolutely loved Kennedy Brooks. But like you said, DeMarco Murray is coming in. Obviously, Brooks is incredibly talented, but that's a new set of eyes, new preferences, things like that. It'll be interesting to see if Brooks still gets the lion's share of the carries or if it's an Eric Gray or a Seth McGowan. Or even maybe Mikey Henderson comes in. That guy looked electric every time he got the football as an H-back moving over to the running back room. It'll be interesting to see what that split is. But I think ultimately Kennedy Brooks will get that rust knocked off of him. And he'll be about as close as we've seen to a feature back at Oklahoma in a long time just because, John, he's that good. The way that he can move just in between the tackles in the open field, the way he just reads the game of football. Like, what could you want from him? Plus, like you said, John, that awesome quote that Lincoln Riley once gave about his running style, things like that, it just looks so smooth. It's hard to not say that guy's the one I want with the football. It's just going to look good.
Listen to the SI Sooners podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google, iHeart, or wherever you get your podcasts. Or on your Amazon-enabled device, just say, Alexa, play the SI Sooners podcast. Go to our website, that's allsooners.com. Click on the player, listen on your phone, your tablet, or your computer, or watch the video version on my YouTube channel, John Hoover Media. For Ryan Chapman, I'm John Hoover. See you guys.